Hey everyone, Brienne here with my ABA mentor, and today I want to talk about my first experience as a special education teacher. So like and subscribe so you can get the latest content. So when I think back about my first time as a teacher, it was pretty wild. I was in school going to get my master's, and as a teacher you have to do a student teaching period of time where you are basically working with another teacher, learning how to do your job, all those things. And I happened to be lucky enough to be hired by a great school that the special education teacher at that time was getting ready to retire at the end of the year. And so I had a chance to actually student teach at the school that I was going to be working at for the next year. So that was great. So I got to know the school and I got to know the kids. But when I was in school, I was doing all my classes, and I loved everything that I was doing. It was like I got to learn about how kids learn how to read, how kids learn how to do math, how to scaffold instruction, and how to do curriculum and curriculum design stuff and tests and measurements, and it was all great. And I was like, wow, like I'm gonna be able to have such an amazing impact on the students that I'm going to be working with. And so I started my student teaching, and when I went into the classroom, I was in a separate classroom with 3rd through 5th grade, and all the kiddos in my class had a diagnosis of autism. And this was kind of my first, I guess, real introduction to working with kids with autism. I had done ABA in the past that I have mentioned in my previous videos, but I didn't necessarily have a whole year with kids to get to know them. And so I went in and I was like ready to go. I was like, I just graduated, I'm finally a teacher, and I'm gonna teach my kids all these great things, and they're all gonna be, reading and doing their math and whatever. And that was the complete opposite of what I experienced. And I went into my first year of teaching, and I was expected to teach reading, math, science, all of the core basic subjects, but my students, I had 9 students, myself, and 2 TAs, which my TAs are friends with me on social media, so hey, and they were literally from the most impacted child that I had was nonverbal, not potty trained, no academic skills at all the way up to a kiddo that I was pushing out of my classroom into general education for various periods of the day, and everything in between. Okay, so there's 9 of us and 3 adults. And when I walked in, I was completely unprepared for the behaviors that were happening in my classroom. And I got, as a teacher, you get basic classroom behavior management, right? So they're like, okay, you can, do these strategies to make your classroom run smoothly and this and that and whatever. But I was not prepared for chairs going across my room. I was not prepared for severe behaviors like feces smearing across my room, and high levels of aggression several times a week that I had to do a room clear because one of my kiddos was very aggressive towards peers. And I was literally in shock. And Luckily, I had some previous experience as a direct ABA provider to sort of have an idea of what to do, but at that time I wasn't a BCBA, and which is actually why I ended up making the transition and going back to school to be a BCBA, because I went in thinking, oh, I'm going to teach all my kids to read, and I was literally working on just sitting at the table, and let alone me being able to teach 9 kids all at different levels, but both just how they're responding and what content they even had the ability to engage with. And it was a real eye-opener. And so that was the first thing. And I was like, whoa, this is a disconnect for teachers out there, special education teachers out there who are not receiving a high level of training in behaviors and what they're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And in addition to that, I had a lot of challenges with the curriculum that I was working with, because I was expected to implement a curriculum that my kids were very clearly not able to access. And it was really difficult. I had to really create my own curriculum in that respect, because we would be working on reading, and I would have reading lesson 5, but my kids they didn't know ABCs. And so that's what really pushed me in the direction of, okay, I need to really create my own way of how I'm going to get my kiddos access to all of this curriculum, but at 9 different levels at once. And thankfully, I got real creative, and I actually, by my second year, I was able to get all of my kids to participate in the state testing, which the state testing occurs at 3rd grade and at 5th grade. And so all of my students were able to sit and attend, and actually a lot of them passed the state testing, which was like unheard of. But it was because I had to go all the way back to, how to respond to touching an item, an array of 3, because that was the test. And it, really took me in the direction of being very intentional with how I was teaching, how I was instructing my TAs to implement what I wanted them to teach. And overall, it was a huge area or time of my life that I had like major growth just in my career, in my ability to work with students with special needs. But I also saw this huge disparity that was happening because for special education teachers who, like me, were unprepared to walk into a classroom with 9 different kids, all with behaviors, and how to manage all of that successfully. And so at that time, I decided, there was this thing that came out that was like, okay, we're looking for, a Cumberland County, which was the county that I was in, was looking for a autism representative to really advocate for what we were doing and advocate for the teachers. And I was selected as being the autism representative for that school year, and was able to talk about this, openly and be like, we need a solution here. And ultimately, I had made the decision that I was going to go back to school to become a BCBA, because I'm very passionate about special education. It's one of the things that I specialize in and I am very passionate about. And so bridging that gap and providing the instruction to BCBAs about special education, and then also special educators about behaviors and about ABA is something that I'm really just passionate about in general. So that was kind of my crash course in special education and the crossover between the two fields, and how much growth opportunity there is for us to come together and collaborate and work positively with schools and districts to make a real cohesive program for our children to not only access the curriculum, but also be able to have manageable and behavior reduction programs that are effective. One last thing that I just thought of that I also found shocking was when I first reviewed IEPs and IEPs with goals that didn't really make sense to me, coming from where I came from, and I had students that clearly could not access the goal that was on the IEP, and it was a process for me to I literally redid everyone's IEP for my classroom, because it was like, this isn't accurate, and I want this to be accurate. I want this to be a good representation of what my student is doing, what my student can do, and what we're actually working on. And so I spent my whole first year teaching, reassessing, reevaluating, and revising their IEPs and their behavior plans to truly reflect what it is that they were working on and what was working and what wasn't. And so yeah, that was my experience as a special educator, and hope you enjoyed my story today, and I'll see you in the next video.